Thank you, my viewers, for choosing Sinister Tales. Every story you hear is drawn from verified reports, trusted sources, and real events that still echo in the dark. These are tales of mystery, of crime, and of the human soul at its darkest. So dim the lights, open your mind, and step with me into the shadows.
Thank you for this moment.
I could just have you just identify yourself for the record.
My name is Sandra Rusak, Shannon's mother.
Thank you.
I wanted to say thank you for this moment. I want to take a moment to thank everyone who has prayed for our beloved family, who had sent gifts, cards to us from all over the world. I know God will put the evil people where they need to be. I also want to take the time to thank the town of Frederick, Greeley, FBI, the DA's office, the CBI, for exceptional work. We thank Nicole Atkinson, Shannon's neighbor, Nathan, and his family. To me, they're our heroes. They really are. God bless. God makes no mistakes on who he puts in your life. Marriage is about love, trust, and friendship and unity. We marry for sickness and health, to death do us part. Our daughter Shannon loved you with all of her heart. Your children loved you to the moon and back. Shannon's family was her world. Shannon put a crown on your head. But unfortunately, the day that you took their life, God removed that crown. We loved you like a son. We trusted you. Your faithful wife trusted you. Your children adored you, and they also trusted you. Your daughter Bella Marie sang a song proudly. I don't know if you got to see it, but it was, "Daddy, you're my hero." I have no idea who gave you the right to take their lives. But I know God and his mighty angels were there at that moment to bring them home to paradise. God gives us free will. So not only did you take the family of four, your family of four, you took your own life. I want the world to know that our daughter and her children were so loved by us. There will always be protected by God and his mighty angels. I didn't want death for you because that's not my right. Your life is between you and God now, and I pray that he has mercy for you. From Shannon's mother, Bella Marie, Celeste Catherine, and Nico Lee's Nana. Thank you, Your Honor.
I'd like to say to the courts that Shannon, Bella, and Nico are loving, caring people. They love life. They love being around people who love them. They always had good times. This is the first time they went to the beach this year, and they loved it. But God only knows what happened that night. Life will never be the same without Shannon, Bella, and Celeste and Nico. Had all their lives to live. They were taken by a heartless one. This is the heartless one, the evil monster, who dare you take the lives of my daughter Shannon, Bella, Celeste, and Nico. I trusted you to take care of them, not kill them. And they also trusted you. The heartless monster, and then you take them out like trash. You disgust me. They were loving and caring people. You may have taken their bodies from me, but you will never take the love they had for me. They loved us more than you will ever know, because you don't know what love is, because if you did, you would not have killed them. You monster, thought you would get away with this. I don't know how. The cameras do not lie. You carry them out like trash of the house. Yes, I seen the videotape. You buried my daughter Shannon and Nico in a shallow grave, And then you put Bella and Celeste in huge containers of crude oil. You heartless monster. You have to live with this vision every day of your life. And I hope you see that every time you close your eyes at night. Oh, I forgot. You have no heart or feelings or love. Let me tell you something. I will think of them every day of my life. And I love them every day of my life. Prison is too good for you. This is hard to say, but may God have mercy on your soul. I hope you enjoy your new life. It's nothing like the one you had out here. May the courts have no mercy on you. It's hard every day. It hurts in so many ways. I have heard people say that you're not a monster. No, you are not. You're an evil monster. Thank you. Love you, Shannon, Bella, and Nico. Love you, Pop and Dad. And one other thing. And Shannon says she is super excited for justice today. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, don't look at Daddy. He's opening his birthday present. He's getting a month to thrive.
Heck yeah. Oh, you got to be kidding me. I gotta censor this, Bella. You serious?
Ice, ice. The kids are thrilled with your birthday present.
Oh, yeah, definitely wearing this. Are you serious?
Serious.
Hell yeah! Oh my goodness!
Cece got her ice.
June 7th. Oh my goodness, I gotta take that day off and the day after off. Hell yeah!
The world thought this story was over, that the name Chris Watts had finally sunk into the quiet corners of history, sealed away behind the steel doors of a Wisconsin prison cell. But evil never truly sleeps, and sometimes the past claws its way back, demanding to be seen again. It's the year 2025, 7 long years since the horrifying murders that shocked America. And yet the name Watts is trending again. Social media timelines fill with hashtags like hashtag reopen the Watts case, hashtag justice for Shanann, and hashtag truthin2026. What was once considered one of the most clear-cut confessions in modern criminal history is suddenly being pulled back into the light, piece by piece, document by document, petition by petition. The whispers started quietly. A handful of amateur investigators and true crime enthusiasts began revisiting the evidence, not to excuse Chris Watts, but to ask why certain things never made sense, why some files remained sealed, why fragments of surveillance data were missing, why so many contradictions were never addressed in open court. And then, something shifted. Late in 2025, a new petition surfaced, addressed directly to the Colorado Attorney General's office. It didn't just question the case. It accused it of being incomplete. Within weeks, over 200,000 signatures appeared beneath it. Among the signatories were retired investigators, a handful of forensic analysts, and families who had seen the justice system fail before. Their message was simple and chilling. If this case is truly closed, why are there still so many unanswered questions? The petition claims new information has surfaced: digital forensics, witness notes, and possible inconsistencies buried in discovery files never made public. It suggests that while Chris Watts confessed, the true chain of events, who knew what and when, might be far more complex than anyone dared to believe. For many, this stirred something deep, because behind the headlines, the Netflix documentaries, and the countless interviews, there has always been a lingering unease, a sense that the truth, like the shadows of that August night, was darker than it appeared. And so here we are again, back in the quiet Colorado suburb where this nightmare began. A once happy family home now empty, its walls heavy with memory. and a story that refuses to stay buried. This is Sinister Tales, where we revisit the cases that still whisper from the grave and question the justice we thought we understood. If you're new here, welcome to Sinister Tales. Don't forget to subscribe, turn on notifications, and join us as we uncover the shadows that others have forgotten. Your support helps us bring light to stories that still echo in the dark. The case begins, as it always does, with the man himself, Christopher Lee Watts. Born in 1985, raised in Spring Lake, North Carolina, Chris was quiet, reserved, and often described as the nice guy. He met Sean and Catherine Razusek in 2010, a strong-willed woman full of ambition and drive. Together, they built what looked like the American dream. 2 daughters, a big house, new cars, and family vacations posted online with hashtags like #MyRock and #BlessLife. But beneath that picture-perfect surface, cracks were forming. Shanann's social media radiated confidence, while behind closed doors, arguments grew more frequent. By the summer of 2018, she was pregnant with their 3rd child, a son they planned to name Nico. Friends noticed her stress. She had confided in some that Chris had grown distant, cold, almost like a stranger. What no one knew was that Chris had already fallen into an affair, one that would soon spiral into murder. That August, Sean returned from a business trip in Arizona. It was the last time anyone saw her alive. The next morning, August 13th, her friend and coworker Nicole Atkinson arrived at the house, worried when Sean missed an appointment. Inside the quiet home, something felt wrong. The car still in the garage, her purse on the counter, her phone found on the couch. By that evening, the police were at the door, and Chris Watts, pale and strangely calm, stood before them, saying he had no idea where his wife or children had gone. For 2 days, he played the role of the heartbroken husband. He gave interviews, pleading for their return. He told neighbors and news cameras, "I just want them back." But the truth was already unraveling. Because behind that fake calm, detectives saw something else: control, calculation, and a disturbing lack of emotion. On August 15th, under hours of interrogation, Chris finally broke. He confessed, first claiming he killed Sean in a fit of rage after she smothered the girls. Then later admitting the horrifying truth. He had killed them all, strangled Sean smothered Bella and Celeste, and hidden their bodies in oil tanks belonging to his employer, Anadarko Petroleum. The confession sealed his fate. In November 2018, he was sentenced to 5 life terms with no chance of parole. The case was closed, or so everyone thought. But somewhere in that mountain of evidence, police body cam footage, interrogation videos, phone data, and interviews, there were pieces that never added up. Inconsistencies in timelines, unreleased reports, and statements from people who later said their words had been edited or omitted. Years later, digital archivists and online investigators began re-examining the data, and what they found would start to change everything. By early 2025, whispers of new evidence began spreading across online communities. Documents leaked through Freedom of Information Act requests, some showing unusual gaps in the forensic chain of custody. A few even suggested additional DNA samples were logged but never matched. Then came the emails, a series of exchanges between officers and the district attorney's office. Buried in legal archives, they hinted at unreleased digital data recovered from Shanann's phone, including the final text messages she sent the night she returned home. Messages that, allegedly, never appeared in discovery. To the public, it was a spark. To investigators, it was a warning. The story might not be finished. Because if these new documents are real, if the data truly was withheld or missed, it could mean that some part of that August night remains in the shadows. And if so, the Watts case may not be as closed as it seems. It began as whispers in corners of the internet, and now it's a wave. A movement that refuses to let go of the shadows surrounding a crime that should have been laid to rest years ago. By late 2025, over 250,000 people had signed the petition to reopen the state of Colorado versus Christopher Lee Watts. But this wasn't a petition started by a random group of true crime fans. It came from Justice for Sean and the Girls, a coalition of retired detectives, digital forensic analysts, and citizen investigators, people who had spent years dissecting every frame, every report, every conflicting statement. Their claim? That Chris Watts' confession, the one that stunned the world, may not tell the full story. It's not about absolving him. It's about the possibility that others, directly or indirectly, knew what was coming, and that key elements of evidence were either misinterpreted or deliberately overlooked. Among the hundreds of pages filed in the new petition, several pieces stand out. The first, a forensic phone analysis dated August 14, 2018, the day after Sean N. was reported missing. In the public files, her final messages are incomplete. But the petition references a deeper digital record extracted by the FBI that includes deleted drafts, messages Sean N. typed but never sent. One, written at 1:48 a.m., reads, "I can't live like this anymore. Something feels wrong. He's not the same man." Another, saved as a draft less than 20 minutes later, says, "He's lying about where he's been. I think he's with her again." Those words were never included in the public case files, and yet, according to the petition, they were in the recovered phone data. That alone doesn't change the outcome, but it changes the story. Because if Sean N. sensed danger, if she feared something that night, the timeline shifts. And that shift could affect everything the investigators believed about how and when the murders took place. The petition also points to another discrepancy, the neighbor's security footage. The clip shown in police records ends abruptly as Chris loads his truck before sunrise. But according to the petition, an unreleased version of that footage, viewed by one of the original responding officers, continues for nearly 2 additional minutes. Those missing frames, it claims, show a second shadow moving behind the truck. One that doesn't match Chris's known height or build. Was it a glitch, a trick of light, or was someone else there? The Frederick Police Department has never commented on that portion of the footage, but the petition includes sworn statements from 2 individuals who say they viewed a longer clip during the initial investigation, one that was never made public. And then, there's the third, perhaps the most controversial claim of all. An internal memo dated November 2018, shortly before Chris's sentencing, allegedly refers to potential obstruction of evidence by an unidentified individual connected to the Anadarko site. That memo was never released in discovery, but it appears in fragment form in a recent FOIA release. The petitioners argue this could suggest someone tampered with the site or moved items before investigators arrived. To the untrained eye, these might look like small discrepancies, technicalities. But in the world of true crime, where timelines, phone data, and camera footage build the backbone of truth, even a missing minute can change everything. Still, skeptics are everywhere. Former Weld County District Attorney Michael Rourke, who oversaw the original case, has publicly dismissed the idea of reopening it. In an interview with the Denver Post, he said bluntly, "There's nothing left to reopen. The evidence was overwhelming. The confession was voluntary. This is over." But for the petitioners, that's exactly the problem. They argue that the case moved too quickly, that Watts's guilty plea came before a full trial, before cross-examinations, before every shred of evidence was brought to light. It's that speed and the lack of scrutiny that followed that fuels the doubt today. One of the group's leading voices is Dr. Elena Moritz, a retired forensic data analyst. She claims she discovered inconsistencies in metadata tied to Shanann's final phone logs, timestamps that don't align with the official record. Her analysis suggests the phone might have been active after the time authorities believed Sean N. was already dead. If that's true, she says in one recorded interview, then the confession can't line up. And if the confession doesn't line up, then we have to ask what else was misrepresented, intentionally or not. For victims' families, this reopening feels like reopening a wound. Shanann's parents, Frank and Sandy Razusek, have remained mostly silent. But in one heartbreaking statement issued through their attorney, they said, "We don't want to relive the horror. We only want peace. But if new truths exist, real truths, then we hope justice faces them too." The petitioners say that's exactly what they're fighting for. Not chaos, not conspiracy, but completion. A full and final accounting of what happened between August 12th and 13th, 2018. As these documents spread online, the public response has been a mix of outrage and fascination. Some call it a desperate reach for attention. Others, a brave pursuit of truth. But everyone agrees on one thing: if Colorado's Attorney General grants this review, it will mark the first time in over 7 years that the Watts case is officially reopened. And beneath that possibility lies a deeper question, not of guilt but of knowledge. Who really knew what was coming, and who might have helped make it possible? If you've made it this far into the story, take a moment to subscribe to Sinister Tales. Your support helps us keep uncovering the hidden truths, the overlooked evidence, and the voices that still demand to be heard. And remember, what you think you know might not be the whole story. As the petition gains national attention, news networks begin to take notice. Talk shows dedicate segments to the possible reopening of the Watts case. Documentary filmmakers race to interview former investigators. And on social media, every minor revelation becomes viral fuel. A new document leak claims to reveal unexamined phone pings, data suggesting that Watts's mistress, Nicole Kessinger, may have deleted additional text threads before handing over her phone. While Kessinger was never charged with any crime, her name still divides opinion. She vanished from public life after the case, but her silence has become the internet's obsession. One petition addendum claims that her interview transcripts contain redacted sections referring to a second visit to the Watts home, something never confirmed in any official report. It's possible those sections were routine redactions, or, as the petition argues, they could hide something more. By December 2025, the Attorney General's office confirms receipt of the petition. They announce that the case materials will undergo a preliminary review in early 2026. Not a full reopening, but a procedural evaluation to determine whether re-examination is warranted. It's not justice, not yet, but for many, it's the spark of hope they've waited years for. Still, within law enforcement circles, there's unease. Because reopening a case this public, this raw, risks everything, especially if it ends the same way. Some detectives whisper that they're afraid what the public wants isn't truth, but a new villain. And that fear might not be unfounded. Because beneath the petitions, beneath the data and the documents, lies something darker. An idea that someone else was there that night. Someone still walking free. And if that's true, then the murders of Sean and Bella, Celeste, and baby Nico may only be half the story. The dawn of 2026 arrives not with peace, but with questions. The petition that once lived quietly on the internet now sits on the desk of Colorado's Attorney General. A thick stack of papers, bound in black, labeled simply, Petition for Review State vs. Watts. It contains hundreds of pages of exhibits, digital logs, new forensic interpretations, and statements from those who believe something inside this case never aligned. On January 11th, the announcement comes. The Colorado Department of Justice confirms that the petition has met the threshold for preliminary review. The Watts case, long considered sealed, will be examined again. The world stops. For a moment, every news outlet, every podcast, every true crime channel turns its lens back to Frederick, Colorado. The home once filled with laughter now becomes a symbol again. A house haunted by memory and the kind of evil no one can explain. What happens next sends waves across the country. A team of independent analysts is appointed to re-examine certain elements of the evidence. Not the conviction itself, but the integrity of how it was handled. They're given 3 months. 3 months to recheck timelines, review digital extractions, and determine whether any procedural irregularities occurred during the 2018 investigation. At the same time, whispers of new physical evidence begin to surface. A former contractor at the Anadarko oil site steps forward, claiming he discovered a small item in 2019, a silver earring, partially buried near the storage tank where Shanann's body was found. He says he turned it over to a supervisor, but never heard back. That supervisor later left the company. No record of the item exists in the official logs. The petitioners seize on the revelation, demanding the area be researched. The site, long since decommissioned, becomes a quiet battleground between truth seekers and state officials reluctant to reopen the wounds. Meanwhile, fragments of communication from inside Dodge Correctional Institution, where Chris Watts is held, begin to leak. Letters, allegedly written by Watts himself, mentioning things only God and I know, and the truth buried under my lies. Some claim he's hinting at others being aware of his plan. Others dismiss it as manipulation, another attempt by a killer to control the narrative. But one letter stands out. Dated October 2025, it reads, "I told them what they wanted to hear. I didn't tell them everything that happened that night." No one can confirm its authenticity, but the letter is included in the petition's appendix, another piece in the ever-growing puzzle that is both horrifying and heartbreakingly incomplete. As media pressure intensifies, the Attorney General's office releases a rare public statement. Our review does not imply wrongdoing by any agency or individual. However, in the interest of transparency, we are conducting a limited re-examination of the evidence management process related to the 2018 investigation. The words are carefully chosen, cautious, measured, but they ignite a firestorm. Because to the world, that single line means everything. It means the door has been opened, even slightly. In Frederick, the Rzusek family avoids cameras. Neighbors say they see Frank sitting quietly outside some evenings, staring at the horizon. Reporters ask him how he feels about the case being reviewed again. He doesn't answer. He just says softly, "All I want is peace." But peace only comes when truth is done. It's a sentiment echoed by thousands online, but also feared by many. Because reopening a case like this doesn't just expose evidence. It reopens the grief, the images, the betrayal, the reality that a mother, her children, and her unborn son were taken in one of the most senseless acts imaginable. And yet, there's something magnetic about the pursuit of truth. Something that drives people to dig, to question, to chase justice even in the darkest corners of human nature. It's not morbid curiosity. It's the belief that justice unfinished is justice denied. By March 2026, the review begins in full. A small, discreet facility in Denver houses the files, tens of thousands of documents, audio recordings, and forensic photographs. Among them are new digital backups from the FBI's archive, revealing that one of Shanann's deleted voice notes was successfully reconstructed. In it, her voice trembles, calm but weary. "I don't know what's happening to him anymore. He's cold, distant. I feel unsafe in my own home." It's the last recording in her phone. The timestamp, August 12th, 11:56 p.m., less than 5 hours before she was killed. For those reviewing the case, the message isn't new evidence of a second killer. But it's something far more human, a warning unheard. And that, perhaps, is the most haunting truth of all. Because sometimes, the silence before the crime tells us everything. In April 2026, rumors swirl that investigators are exploring the chain of custody of one specific piece of evidence, the digital extraction report from Watts's truck GPS. Early data shows gaps between 4:23 a.m. and 4:41 a.m., moments critical to understanding his route to the oil site. The petitioners claim those gaps could suggest tampering or missing logs. The state says the data was simply incomplete. But in a case like this, every missing second matters. And as these technical debates play out behind closed doors, the public becomes divided. One side demands accountability. The other insists this is nothing more than obsession, people trying to rewrite a tragedy that already found its ending. Meanwhile, former mistress Nicole Kessinger becomes the subject of renewed scrutiny. Court filings reveal that she has changed her name and relocated, living quietly somewhere in the Midwest. She has never spoken publicly since the trial, but now her past interview transcripts resurface with renewed analysis. Some claim her statements about the timeline of her last call with Chris don't align with his phone records. Others argue she was simply confused. But the doubt lingers, as it always has. For the internet sleuths, she remains the ultimate question mark. For investigators, she remains a ghost in a story already drenched in tragedy. By June 2026, the review nears its conclusion. No official word yet. No verdict, no reopening, just silence. The kind that carries weight, like a held breath before the storm breaks. But then, on June 29th, a press conference is scheduled. The nation watches. Reporters crowd outside the Colorado Department of Justice building. The air is tense, charged with anticipation. The Attorney General steps up to the podium. Cameras flash. He takes a slow breath before speaking. After careful and thorough review, our team found no procedural misconduct, no evidence of withheld materials, and no indication that any individual other than Christopher Watts was involved in these crimes. A pause. However, we did find inconsistencies in how certain evidence was cataloged, as well as unexamined digital fragments that will now be archived under open record policy. In other words, no reopening, no second trial, but not nothing. Because buried in that statement is an admission that parts of the evidence were mishandled. Not intentionally, perhaps, but mishandled nonetheless. And that acknowledgement for many is enough. Enough to prove that their fight wasn't in vain. Enough to show that truth, no matter how small, can still be found in the cracks of the past. As the press conference ends, the crowd begins to disperse. Outside, the setting sun bleeds gold across the Denver skyline. And somewhere, maybe in a cell in Wisconsin, Chris Watts hears the news. Perhaps he smiles. Perhaps he doesn't. But the story once again shifts around him. Because this isn't just about guilt. It's about memory. About a family that never got to finish their story. And a truth that, even in fragments, continues to haunt everyone who dares to look. If this story has moved you, don't forget to subscribe to Sinister Tales. Your support allows us to uncover what others overlook. The small truths that still whisper beneath the silence of justice. And remember, every crime leaves behind a shadow. Sometimes those shadows speak louder than the case files ever could. The case of Chris Watts remains closed. But questions remain. Not just about what happened in 2018, but about how much we still choose not to see. Because truth, like darkness, has a way of returning when you least expect it. And somewhere, in the quiet of a prison cell and the echoes of a Colorado neighborhood, the ghosts of Sean and Bella, Celeste, and baby Nico still linger, reminding us that closure is never as complete as it seems. This is Sinister Tales, where the dead still whisper, and the truth never truly dies.